This is Things I've Found Online with Joe Cipriano, Larry Morgan, and Louise Palanker. Radio and film legends are exploring the internet. Louise?
Hi, Joe. Are you in New York?
I am in New York City. Hello.
That's a
Can you
very
tell?
New
Does it look like
Yorky-
New York behind me?
Yeah, it's a very New Yorky backdrop that you got going on.
Yeah. Thank you.
What's in the room? What are we looking at?
Well, you know what? I'm at my wife Ann,
Right.
her cousin Janet, who is an opera singer. She's a soprano.
Wow.
And this is her little den that I'm sitting in that I also use as my recording studio when I'm in New York, staying with her. And,
But you have to sing everything.
It's 88 Central Park West, and I call it Studio 88.
Ah, that's adorable. So I would like to
you. And so are
welcome.
you.
Joe is in New York. We're in Los Angeles, and live with our guest, Oscar-nominated screenwriter Alan Wenkus.
Oh, thank you
Come
so
on,
much.
let's hear it.
Thank you for being with us, Alan.
I'm still bopping to that catchy Casio theme. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Thank you. Wheezy and I have known each other for years. Joe, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah.
And the team here.
Thank you, Al.
This is actually the state-of-the-art Wheezy studio that has actually seen some upgrades over the years.
Yeah, you've been here.
I've been here before. Wheezy is a groundbreaking podcaster.
Yeah.
Back before everyone was doing it, you know.
Early adapter.
True.
Cutting edge.
You're right.
So, Alan, we have some research on Alan. What we do first with our guests, Alan, is because our show is called Things I Found Online. So, history, that is the 9 episodes of this show that precede this one. No, 8 episodes that precede this one. History dictates that we must Google you. That's our tradition. So, let's Google Alan Wenkus and see the prison records. Okay. So
Ooh, that came up quickly.
yeah, so Alan, because he's Oscar nominated, and he's Oscar nominated for Straight Outta Compton, which he wrote and painstakingly wrote over the years, the trials that this young man has endured getting that thing across the finish line, because he'd come in every day and go, and it was always something about Eazy-E's widow, you know?
Yeah, Wheezy was there at the beginning. We're like, hey, we've got Eazy's widow on board. Then it was like 6 months later, she's not being as smooth as we'd hoped, you know?
So
but yeah, that's how it all started.
Yeah, like we feel like we know her.
Yeah, Eazy's widow was my first contact with Straight Outta Compton, and to get her on board and Eazy-E's Life Rights on board was really winning her trust. Because
I bet.
Yeah, because Dre and Cube had become such icons. She was afraid that Eazy was going to be marginalized.
Oh, no, he's the whole story.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he had died so young, so we had to tell her, no, it's not going to be Straight Out of Cubeton. It's going to be Straight Outta Compton. Because, you know what I mean? They had just overshadowed him because he was gone. So, that was a journey that Wheezy was always part of. Do we call you Wheezy on the air?
Wheezy Wee.
Yeah.
Wheezy Wee.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wheezy.
Wheezy Wee. So what it says online when you went and Googled Alan Wenkus, it said Alan Wenkus is an American screenwriter, film producer,
He
and
is.
a former VP of programming for premier radio networks.
Oh my gosh, look at that. It's right up there on the top line.
Right up there, according to Wikipedia. Alan was born
Yeah.
April 10th. His movies include, and this is I think there's a lot of range that's revealed right here. His movies include Straight Outta Compton and Private Resort.
Yeah, they went for the big two. And I don't know why those are listed. Out of all the things, certain things are in development, certain things are in pre-production. But Private Resort was a movie when I was literally like 22 years old that I wrote, and Johnny Depp was in it. And it was not a great film. I don't know how else to describe it. But
oh my God, I'm looking at stills of it. Yes, it's
all
a
right,
bunch
can you
of
look up
beach
Private
bodies.
Resort?
Do we have to make this about Private Resort?
I think we do. Yeah, yeah, because Alan would always tell us that like not a word that he had written
ended up in the final on screen.
It was like,
yeah, they kept
and
my
that's-
page numbers.
and that's what happens, right?
In that particular case, it had gone through multiple directors, and I always liked the joke that they kept my page numbers. It was like, we couldn't
Alan,
change the
that
page
is
numbers.
hilarious. I love
Great
that. They
job
kept
on the
my
page
Yeah,
numbers.
he had
numbers.
paginated,
Oh
so it
my
was
God.
permanent.
Yeah, but I had written a script. I was hired by a producer named Ben Ephraim, and to write a movie, a comedy at a resort, and It was during the 1980s of teen movies, and we wrote something very clever, and then it passed through many, many hands. And by the time I was on set with Johnny Depp, who was a terrific guy at the time, I don't know him. All I know is he was a terrific guy.
Sure.
And he would come up to me with scenes and go, "Hey, what do you think of this? And what am I supposed to do with that?" And I go, I didn't even write this, Johnny." He's like, aren't you the writer? And I go, I thought so too. But they were just always.
But Alan, 85, that's before he was on 21 Jump Street, right?
It was right around the same time he was starting to rise. I'm not sure what year he ended up on Jump Street. Maybe 87.
Well, Fox Network didn't even come on the air until 87.
Yeah.
87, 88. So yeah.
Yeah, it was before that. His next movie after that was Platoon. And if you watch if you watch Platoon, he's the translator. He's not a build. It's like there are bigger actors in there, Willem Dafoe and Charlie Sheen, but he's in there and he's in a lot of scenes. And he was talking about it. He was saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going to do this Oliver Stone war movie. We have to go off for like 6 months, and shoot this Vietnam movie." He was all excited about it. And then they tried to make him, this is what I know about Johnny at the time, they tried to make him kind of a Teen Beat star.
Yeah, they did.
And he resisted it. He really wanted to be an actor. And he started saying, "I'm going to do Cry Baby," the John Waters movie. "I'm going to do Edward Scissorhands." And you realize those were courageous choices for a young actor who they wanted to put in like movies like Top Gun, Right.
He was kind of carving out a future that had longevity and had, teeth to it.
Yeah, and even when he really gigantically made it big in Pirates of the Caribbean, that was still an offbeat role.
Well, be that as it may, Alan, I'm not taking down my pinup.
Okay.
So
your Teen Beat from 87.
As long as that's established. So, Alan, you go on to become nominated for an Oscar, which is like, my Alan, you know what I mean? Like, from the perspective of everyone who's known you forever, since we were babies in radio, it was like, oh, our Alan is... So, did you wake up to listen to this? Because we're going to play... the Oscar nomination announcements, because it's just kind of surreal.
Yeah, I was the last name they said in that category.
Yeah, have you got that, Thomas? All right, so hang on. Amazing. Spoiler alert, he gets nominated. So who do we have here, Alan? Who's making these announcements?
That is John
Matt
Krasinski,
Sharman, Ethan Cohen, and Joel Cohen.
And Cheryl Boone Isaacs, who's the head of the Academy.
Okay.
Alex Garland for Ex Machina.
These are all the movies in my category.
Pete Docter, Meg LeBeau, Josh Cooley, and Ronnie Del Carmen for Inside Out. Josh Singer and Tom McCarthy for Spotlight.
Oh, that was a good movie.
And Jonathan Herman, Andrea Burloff, Lee Savage, and Alan Wenkus for Straight Outta Compton.
Wow, was your mom in the audience?
We got the applause.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
I was out. Universal did a campaign to get the movie nominated, and it was in categories for Best Picture and Best Director, and they had put us in for Best Screenplay, and a couple of the guys were in for Best Actor. So I was on the campaign trail, going to events, and I was campaigning for the movie. And I never thought that we would get nominated for the Best Screenplay. And so I did not get up that morning. And the first call I got was at like 5:45 from my attorney. And I did not think we were going to get nominated. I didn't even get up. So I hear my phone ring, and it's my attorney. And he's like, "Congratulations. You've been nominated for an Academy Award." And it's 5:45, and he's calling from his office. I'm like, "Andy, I am so impressed. You're at the office." So I have no idea. He's doing some overseas stuff. He's up early. So that was the first call I got. And then I got a call from the New York Times. And the New York Times. And that began what would become the media frenzy of being nominated for an Oscar. The New York Times called, and that was my first quote. And it was a balancing act of being gracious, being sort of appreciative, but also realizing that the movie had not been nominated. Our director had not been nominated. No one else had been nominated. So you had to balance it, like going,
wow.
I'm very humbled and honored to be nominated, but I also wish that we had been nominated in some other category. So you have to be careful at the beginning.
That you're not, spiking the football.
Right, and also, and paying respect to the rest of the team.
Yeah, because that was the year that no black people were nominated, and you had a movie about black people, and you were a white person,
white writer.
the one white guy that worked on the movie.
Yeah, and I was also one of the executive producers because we had brought in Eazy-E's Widow, we had brought in the music rights, and I was part of the whole. That's why I was always talking to Louise about what was going on. I was part of the process.
Yeah, and so tell Joe how you kind of stumbled upon this amazing story.
Yeah, so what happened was I was introduced to start off to Jerry Heller, who was played by Paul Giamatti.
Brilliantly.
And Jerry Heller, nobody was talking to each other in the early 2000s. Like, Dre and Cube, they were friendly, but they weren't working together. Eazy-E's Widow was not talking to Dre or Cube. Eazy had passed away. Jerry Heller was estranged from everybody. No one really liked him anymore. And so I was introduced to Jerry Heller, and I started interviewing him, and he was in a chatty mood. And he started telling us about his relationship with Eazy-E. And when I heard this story of how Jerry Heller, this white Jewish guy, had this relationship with this kid from Compton who he ended up feeling like was his son in many ways.
Yeah.
It really became the spine of how I was going to build the story and make it more than just a hip hop story, because if you look at the movie, everything sprang from that relationship.
Right.
The business relationship, they got their record deal. They got their tours from the relationship with Eazy and Jerry. All the conflict sprang from the relationship. Cube left because of Jerry. Suge Knight tries to come in and take over because of Jerry. Dre ends up leaving because of Jerry. So it was the spine of the story.
Right.
And then once we had that, we built the draft and went to Eazy-E's Widow. And that's when we got Eazy-E's Widow on board. And she was like, I don't know who you are, but this story captures Eazy. And I said, well, Tamika, I know you hate Jerry Heller, but we've been talking to him, She's like, I don't care, because whatever he's told you is factually correct. She was there.
Wow.
Because she was she was dating Eazy at the time. So once we had Jerry Heller and we had Eazy-E's Widow, who controlled some of the songs, that was key. Mm-hmm. When Eazy died, some of the rights to the songs had passed over to her. They didn't go to Ice Cube or Dre. They went to her. You're talking about Boys in the Hood, Straight Outta Compton, F the Police.
Yeah.
Wow.
So once we had the music and her and the script and Jerry Heller's input, we went to the studio, sold the script, sold the whole package, and then Dre and Cube came aboard. So
hey,
Alan,
how long did that take? What's the timeline on that?
I would say in these early days, it took a couple of years to get everything together, sell it to the studio, and then this was in 2007, and then there was a big writer's strike, and we had to stop everything. Even though we had sold it to the studio, there was no more work being done for about a year or so, or 8 or 10 months, and that created a problem. And then New Line Studio had bought the project. They brought in Dre and Cube, and then New Line had released a movie called The Golden Compass, and it was such a disaster, The Golden Compass, that Warner Brothers, who owned New Line, just took over New Line. There were many factors, but I always blamed The Golden Compass. And
sure.
So they took over New Line, and suddenly our project was in disarray. And then Warner Brothers said, okay, we'll do it. Now years are passing. We got F. Gary Gray attached as director. And then this is why it took so long. And then Warner Brothers decided, well, we don't know what it's going to do overseas, so we're only going to give you a $15 million budget to make the movie. Ice Cube said no. He said it in much more harsh terms. And at this point, it was like 2012, and he took it to Universal. And Universal took it, and then it took another 18 months to get everybody's contracts over there.
Golly.
And this is why the journey went from 2007 to 2014 before they went into production with the movie. And a lot of other people had their hands in it,
So to me, it felt like when this finally happened for you, it felt like 90% of your job was really just sort of like psychologically being able to read a room and feel out people and be who and what everyone need you to be. Like, because without your patience and your ability to work with others, you wouldn't have gotten this over the finish line. You're telling these people's story. You have their lives in your hands, and they have to trust you.
And I will say, at the time, tying in with the theme of this show, when we started this project, there was no Twitter, there was no Facebook, there was no Wikipedia really, and there was no source material. And you could have told that story a million ways. And it stuck with my original vision, which was the relationship with Jerry Heller springs up about 20 minutes into the movie, and then everything springs from it. So I would say that I had to gain everybody's trust. You had to be someone they wanted to work with. And you also had to give up control to Dre and Cube because you needed them. You needed them to be happy. You needed them to be on board. And so it ended up being more of their project in the room. When you were in a room, it was Dre and Cube. And we would warn them a little, say, hey, you can't diminish Eazy-E's widow because she has control.
Yeah.
And when Eazy-E's widow felt marginalized, she would disappear for a few months, and the studio would call us and go,
wow.
have you been talking to her? She's not answering our calls. And we said, we told you, don't put her in a room with Cube. All the attention's going to go to him, you know?
Right.
And
This
so
had
we
to
had
be
to
such a crazy roller coaster ride. Oh my gosh.
And then executives would hop on and off. They would not. And so I would say my most exciting boast is that I was the blank page guy all the way to the Oscars. And no one can really say that,
Yeah.
So-
You're the one guy that hung on and got on that train and hung on till it pulled into the station.
Yeah, and it started with the blank page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was exciting, and it paid off for everybody, and it did very well. It made $200 million worldwide.
Yeah.
So, Joe, would you like to see where this all began? Because young
I would
Alan,
love to see this. Oh my gosh.
Get this queued up, Thomas, because I don't want to leave anybody, hanging with too much anticipatory.
Of my very first production.
This is
It
pretty
all
exciting.
goes
So,
back to the beginning.
You want to hear a little backstory?
yeah, the
before?
backstory Alan's going to bring
please.
you right here.
The backstory was I was 15 years old, living in Massachusetts, and on the back of a cupcake box they were called Drakes. And if you're from back
Drake's,
east,
I know Drake's. I grew up
Yeah.
in Connecticut. Oh my God.
Okay, so Drake's is a regional, maybe 13 states. They're like Hostess. Hostess makes Twinkies. Drake's made Ring Dings and Devil Dogs. And
Ring
on the
Dings.
back of this cupcake box, it said, write your own TV commercial and win a free camera. And I wrote a commercial and sent it in. And they contacted me and said, we want you to fly to New York and make this commercial. And I had never acted. I had never done anything. I was 15 years old. And
Jeez.
they let me come to New York and do this commercial.
You are the Sylvester Stallone of cupcakes.
You were in high school. Good.
Yeah,
He was
I became a big
like a
celebrity in high school.
sophomore. He's
Yeah.
he's 15.
A sophomore out of
sophomore.
Massachusetts.
And this is the commercial, and all I could say is, boy, could I not act. But I got all my lines in the right order. So
All right, roll it, Thomas.
All right, here it comes.
Hi, Drake's is letting me, Alan Wenkus, star in my own Ring Ding commercial. Watch. Hello! For years I gave people a pain in the neck, but now I sink my teeth into delicious Drake's Ring Dings with chocolatey frosted cake and creamy filling. Who needs anything else? But remember, leave me some Ring Dings so I go back to my old ways.
Commercial by Alan. Ring Dings by Drake's.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And I always tell you my funniest story was on set. I'm on set, and you're doing take after take, and it was a lot of fun. It was
I'm
really
sure.
great.
I mean,
you
you had a
kidding?
trap
Yeah.
door.
And you're doing take after take, and you've got the Drake's people there, and you've got the advertising agency there, Needham, Harper and Steers, and you've got the director, and the Drake's guy is saying, listen, Alan, when you bite the ring ding, you're Dracula, and it's like blood. You've got to go creamy filling. You've got to say creamy filling. And the director goes, for Christ's sakes, the kid's not George C. Scott. I'll never forget that. But it was a lot of fun, and I became a big celebrity in high school. Like all the jocks that used to kind of, put you down a little. And,
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they were coming up and shaking your hand and going, "Hey, man, I could never do that."
Wow.
And then girls were asking you out. It's like, so Mary,
Wow.
you've ignored me since third grade. Why are we going on this date? And she's like, because my father told me you were going to be a big success. Oh, good enough for me.
That's pretty much
Oh
how
my
I got
God,
my
that's
dates.
Yeah.
such a great story.
So this whole Straight Outta meme
Yes.
internet sensation. Was
Yeah.
it,
We've
whose
all-
idea
we've all
was
used
this,
that.
and how do I hurt him?
Okay, that was Dr. Dre's. It came from Dre's camp.
Oh, I can't hurt him.
Yeah, Dre. It was amazing because Universal had put the machine behind this, and they had started airing spots on the Grammys, and we saw there was momentum. But when Dre and his team said, "Hey, let's create this Straight Outta meme," and put it on Instagram and Twitter,
Amazing.
and that caught on in such a way. We were the #1 trending topic on Twitter
Oh,
a
yeah.
week before the movie. That means you got to push Donald Trump down,
Yeah.
which is just an amazing feat.
Oh, yeah.
So we were the #1 trending topic a week before the movie opened, and that's when you realized, wow, this thing is going to open strong. You know?
Yeah.
Huge.
And everyone was just going for it. Straight out of this, straight out of that.
Oh, yeah. We have some examples.
Okay.
So I
Oh, yeah.
Googled, Joe, I Googled worst Straight Outta memes, and here's
Right.
the image search result for that. And we can click
let's
on
see.
anything that you guys are closer to the computer. So the one I like is the first one that comes up. And let's see if Thomas can grab that one. So yeah, Straight Outta Quaaludes, I think, is
There it is.
#1. And so what the point I was getting to is if you type in worst Straight Outta memes and best Straight Outta memes, the results are the same.
Yeah, it became a phenomenon.
Yeah.
And
So what else-
Universal couldn't even control the merchandising anymore. People just
No,
ran
I'm
with it.
sure.
Oh, it went crazy. Do you see the one
Yeah.
that says is Straight Outta Toilet Paper? Because I think Jasper would like that one.
There's also
What
a Donald
Oh, my
Trump
gosh.
talking straight out of his ass.
Oh yeah, straight out of his ass. Yep.
Yeah.
Twitter basically showed us how successful the movie was going to be. The movie studios.
That's so interesting. So you got a tip off from the internet reacting.
Yeah, because the movie studios use a certain tracking method on pre-sales and interest where they can pretty much project. And they're going, oh, it's like people were telling me for years, not years, for months, they were saying, it's going to open at $25 million, which was great, $25 million opening weekend. And the budget was 25.
I was just
And,
going to ask you what the budget was. Yeah.
Yeah, the budget was about 25. It was a tight budget. And I kept saying, no, it's going to be more like 60. And people were like, are you kidding? That's like that's a big summer superhero opening, you know? And so right up until then, the tracking that the studios use based on pre-sales, on Fandango and people buying tickets and
Right.
whatever buzz is going on, they kept saying it's going to open here and here. Rotten Tomatoes gave us a good rating. And I kept saying, no, it's going to be bigger. And we opened at 60.
Wow.
And it was, it stunned people. They were like,
Yeah.
And then it just kept going. We were the #1 at the box office for 3 weeks.
Oh,
you
it
know?
built. I think
Yeah.
it built as people saw it.
And I had made a deal at that point with Universal where they had owed me a certain money that was called a production bonus. Mm-hmm. And they had called me in and said, a year before, they had said, okay, here's your production bonus. We have it contractually when we go into production. But if you want to roll the dice with us,
You're kidding.
they said, we will double your production bonus when we hit these box office milestones, like 80 million, 90 million, 100 million.
my
This is like
gosh.
Monty Hall.
Yeah, and I said, it was a risk. And I went,
Yeah.
okay. And they went, okay. Like, they were like, wow, because if
Alan,
you don't hit those
that's
milestones, you're going to get
amazing.
nothing, you know?
Yeah.
And so it hit 60 in 2 days. Then it hit 80 in 5 days. Then it hit
Oh, my
100.
God.
Universal literally wrote that check like within 2 weeks because there was they had to write it. They were
Yeah.
like, wow.
Yeah.
Did you guys, this thing has just hit it out of the park.
So
know?
you just had a great feeling about it,
Yeah.
and you knew, like you could
I had
feel
a great
the
feeling
energy.
about it, but also I wanted to ride with Universal and create goodwill.
Got it. Got it.
And there and when I about a year later, after they paid us in like 2 weeks, but a year later I ran into that guy in business affairs in the elevator going to another meeting, and he looked at me like, 99% of the time those things don't work.
Right. That
You
never
know,
works.
he-
Yeah.
Yeah, he goes, yeah, it hits like 79 million, you never hit 80, and those people never get paid. He goes, wow, what a great role you did,
That
You
is
sure
so
did.
cool.
Are
Yeah.
you a gambler in other aspects of life, Alan?
I know. I was leaning towards pay me, And then,
Yeah.
but in the meetings, and they paid us a certain amount, but they held some of it. It was a
Yeah.
lot of money they owed us after 14 years, you know?
Yeah.
Wow.
And when I rolled with them, I felt, this is a good thing for me. And to this day, I have a good relationship with Universal. When we got nominated for the Oscar, I got a bottle of Dom Perignon from the head of Universal sent to my door that day, and it just felt good. And plus, I was on the circuit promoting the movie. So there are people in the Academy today that I know that said, you were out there promoting the movie, not yourself. And that's why we voted for you. And you're like,
Wow.
whatever works,
Wow. Yeah.
That's
There's
interesting.
just certain people said that to me,
Hey,
Yeah,
Alan,
so that-
when something like that happens, does that mean now at Universal, you can just go in there anytime and you can pitch any idea?
No.
No?
I do have a door open, and I have gone in and talked, but Universal's going through their own what's working. The movie business is changing.
Yeah.
And what's happening is because of all the streaming services and your Netflix, your Amazons, and everything going online a little bit, another theme of the show is that people are not going to the movies as much as they used to when they can watch a movie 3 or 4 months later
Yeah.
on a tablet or their TV or their laptop.
Yeah.
So so when I talk to Universal, they're like, we're trying to create event movies where the whole family can come. These smaller movies are a gamble for us, and so it's an open door and a great relationship. But they're not just going to buy anything,
Gotcha.
They
Yeah.
what they're really focused on now is rebooting horror movies that they own.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always work. The Mummy did not work so well with Tom Cruise, and Wonder Woman does work. And
Yeah.
I thought Wonder Woman was a terrific movie, really. It was well done, but that was a Universal. But so no, it doesn't automatically
Yeah.
create what else you got,
Right.
but it does create a great relationship. So if you do have something, the door's open.
So what do you have and what do you want to work on?
Oh, good question.
Well, I have a
Louise.
lot of things in development right now.
Thanks, Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. What's in development?
Okay. Well, first thing is I do a lot of true stories. I've done well with them. There's a marketing angle I learned through Straight Outta Compton if something is relevant. So the first thing I did, right after Straight Outta Compton was I did some research. I had some firsthand knowledge about the battle between Coca-Cola and Pepsi in the 1980s.
Ooh,
and
love
it was a very entertaining story because Coca-Cola had always been the number one soft
Number
drink.
one. Yeah.
Number one, 100 years. And Pepsi in 1984 hired Michael Jackson. And Michael
I remember.
Jackson,
Yes.
it became
went with
such
his
a
tour.
phenomenon that for a split second, Pepsi started outselling Coke. And Coke panicked. And they decided, we're going to launch a brand new marketing angle called New Coke.
New Coke.
New Coke was such a disaster. Like people rose up and they had protests and
so
boycotts
bad.
and petitions. So I wrote the story, and it's really a comedy about. It's all true, and with a certain amount of artistic license. But
Oh,
it's the
Alan, that
comedy
is so good.
of Coke and Pepsi spying on each other, and
Yes.
just all this great stuff. But it wasn't big enough for a film. And I went to Universal with it, and they said it's great, but it's not big enough for us as a film. So I ended up going to Lionsgate Television and creating a series.
Oh, fun.
And they had done Mad Men.
Oh, wow.
And they had a relationship with
Fantastic.
Coke. So I
Right.
got in to see the top guys at Lionsgate, like the chairman.
Did
and
they
he-
serve you Coke?
Yeah. And they said, we love it. This is great. And we created a series called Game Changers. And every season
Game
is another
Changers.
game-changing moment in pop culture.
Oh, wow.
And the second season is about Napster, how Napster changed the internet
Yes.
and launched everything and
And the
changed
music
the music
industry,
business.
yeah.
Shut down the record stores, launched iTunes. And so I made a deal with Lionsgate. We're at a couple of networks right now, and we're closing in on where this is going to land. And that is an example of me pivoting and going, I think I'm not going to say no to a movie. If someone tells me, no, this isn't quite a movie for us, I'm going to go and make a series out of it.
Yeah.
And that is where the business is changing.
Yes.
Sometimes,
Especially, I think people's viewing habits have sort of
completely.
adjusted Because when you drop an entire season,
Right. Nobody
we
waits
become
anymore for,
animals.
got to wait until next Tuesday.
Yeah.
They all come out
We're
at the
animals
same time.
feeding on a carcass. We can't stop. We'll stay up for 36 hours straight, just completely
Binge
gorging
watching
ourselves.
down to the
Feeding on a
bone.
It's just
carcass.
ridiculous. Yes.
But movie-wise, I'm still involved in a lot of stuff. There was Jim DeFelice wrote a book with Chris Kyle, which became American Sniper, that
Oh,
Clint
yeah.
Eastwood directed.
Of course.
And when Jim DeFelice was researching American Sniper, he heard about this Iraqi translator that was working with the Navy SEALs, an Iraqi citizen. It was working with the Navy SEALs and uncovered the beginnings of the rise of ISIS. And he infiltrated ISIS and worked with the Navy SEAls for the good of his own family and his own country. And it became Jim DeFelice wrote the book. It became another New York Times bestseller. It's called Code Name Johnny Walker. Okay. And I was brought in to adapt that. And right now that is being put together as a film. I finished the script. We're putting together a cast and getting a director, and it's moving along. That is one of my big projects. I also
That's great.
I got the rights. I'm working with John Fogerty, who was the lead singer and songwriter for Creedence Clearwater.
Creedence, yeah.
It's an amazing story what happened to John Fogerty.
Really?
Because he was an artist who fought for his rights. When, just in a nutshell, this is a movie. We're doing a small an indie film on this, but when Creedence Clearwater broke up, they were the #1 American rock band.
Down on the corner.
Yeah, well, you're talking about Proud Mary.
Proud
Who'll
Mary,
Stop the
yeah.
Rain.
Yeah.
All the rock bands in the late 60s and early 70s were coming from England. The Beatles, the Stones, the Who, Led Zeppelin. They were the #1 American rock and roll band that had radio hit after radio hit. And when the band broke up, like all bands break up, contractually it said you have 7 albums, you've only delivered 5, and a record label normally just release 2 greatest hits albums to fulfill the contract. But what the head of Fantasy Records at the time, an executive named Saul Zantz, what he did was he went and he bought, in the contract it said that all the guys from Creedence had a right to vote on all business decisions. He bought the rights to vote from the other Creedence guys because the band had broke up
You're
and they
kidding.
weren't speaking.
Wow.
He went and bought their voting rights, and then he went to John Fogerty and he said, you as the lead singer, as the songwriter, you now owe me, Fantasy Records, 36 new songs. And I need them now. I want them to be hits. Let's get them.
Wow.
And Fogerty was like, I can't be bullied. You're asking me what, to build birdhouses? No. You're telling me to create inspired music while being bullied legally? So John signed away all his rights to Creedence Clearwater and walked away.
Oh my
For
God.
10 years.
Oh my gosh.
This amazing artist did nothing.
Unbelievable.
And then all these artists came up to John and said, John, like Bruce Springsteen and George Harrison and Bob Dylan, and they said, John, you got to do something. You're setting a precedent. So John released his first solo album called Center Field in 1985. Remember
Yes.
Center Field?
Center
Put
Field,
me in,
sure.
coach.
Yeah.
Sure.
And Center Field became a #1 album in the country. It was his first solo album, and Saul Zantz sued him
Oh my gosh.
for sounding like himself.
Ah!
And he tried to stop him from being John Fogerty, and John had to go all the way to the Supreme Court to be himself.
Oh, my
and that's what the
God.
movie's about. It's an artist fighting for his rights. And
You know what? It's like reminding me of this like odd moment in my life where I'm working for Rick Dees, and everybody that would come on the morning show after that, I would bring them into another studio and record an interview. So I had it for the weekly top 40.
That's right.
And I walk up to John Fogerty and I go like, "Hey, is it okay if I bring you in here and interview you?" And he said like, I can't do an interview. He's like, "But I'll talk to you." So a bunch of us just stood around for an hour and talked to John Fogerty. So I wonder if there was something that, he was worried about just in terms of...
Sure.
Oh, so you talk. This is at a time of Center Field.
Yeah, right around Center Field, yeah.
He was probably in the lawsuits, and he didn't want to say anything out of school.
Yeah.
That could.
But he was so friendly. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and so we're talking about that. I developed it, and so I've got a lot of projects like that.
Wow,
That's
you
just
have a
couple.
lot going on, Alan.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah.
exciting. It's all stuff that's so inspiring, and you can really dig into it.
Yeah, and also I get called into projects, and I'm up for a couple of big ones, and they're great. I get drawn to the good projects, and then you have to do research, then you have to go and talk to the people, and they're normally studios or production companies, and tell them how you would approach that movie. And you're up against other people. So I only go after the ones that I think would be great, you know?
So how much of your day do you spend writing, and how much do you spend managing the career that you now have?
When I'm really working on a script, I spend probably, 10 hours writing. And that normally means you're getting paid to write. You've got a deadline to write. And what I do is I'll get up and I'll write a little bit in the morning, and then I'll take a walk and think about what I'm writing. And then I'll write a little bit in the afternoon, and then I'll have an afternoon coffee or something, and maybe, do something relaxing. And then I'll write in the evening. And by the time you're done, you're like, I really put in some hours today, but it took little breaks.
Right, right.
And those breaks are thinking, because a lot of what I do is thinking through, and you have these breakthroughs during your thinking time.
Yeah.
You're like, wait a minute, I'll combine those two characters and make them one character.
And then when you sit down and it just like flows out of you.
By the time you've had those breakthroughs, that's when you're writing at like midnight.
Yeah.
It also seems like it's a solo sort of thing. Is it get to be kind of a lonely sort of existence?
A little bit when you're writing, but it's exciting, because normally when I'm writing, I have a goal, or I've got people on board, the movie's been funded, or I'm being paid, or it's an assignment and I'm being paid. And so you're excited to deliver something to the people that have put their trust in you. Spec projects take a little longer, because you're just going, I'll work on that in my spare time, and then you get the other projects that you're being paid. So I self-generate projects, and then I'm brought into projects where, you're being paid.
And do you feel kind of like everything that you've done in your life up until this moment was leading up to this moment and preparing you for this moment?
I will say the pitching. When I go in to pitch something, and I'm just kind of giving you guys a little overview, but when I went out to the networks to pitch that, we call it the Cola Wars. It was a 45-minute pitch where I was doing all the characters. I'm doing like, hi, Mr. Rico, it's Michael Jackson. I'm the gentleman who did those commercials. Yes, I know who you are, Michael. I was acting it out, and it was from years of doing radio and comedy with Louise. It was from doing stand-up. And I had the confidence to go in and pitch in a unique way, and they would tell me, they go, you know what makes you different?
Yeah.
You're funny. You're funny.
They don't get any pitches like that. Right.
Yeah. A lot of the writers come in and they go, I want to examine the philosophical aspects of the undercurrent of modern society. And they're like, great. So I always make my stuff entertaining, even when it's not a comedy. You're coming in and showing everything. Even Straight Outta Compton had humor in it. You know?
It did.
And so you always have to show people, look, this is entertaining,
Yeah. So our show is called Things I Found Online.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Right.
Really?
I found the name of the title online.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can find us online, and so Joe and I communicate with Larry, and Larry's not with us today. He's at a meeting.
Larry's not with us. Yes.
And he's sad because he loves Alan, and we all love Alan.
Oh,
and
this
we all
would
work together.
It would have been a hoot to have
been
everybody together in one room. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
but Alan, you'll be back, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Larry did one of the best interviews with me that is online. It's on his own show called Snark Monkey.
Yeah,
Snark
I stole his
Monkey,
graphic.
yes.
Oh, yeah. It was. He actually prepared. He did a fantastic interview.
He's
I was
good.
very impressed.
He's Larry is very professional.
Yeah.
He is.
To
He
the
is
point
a
where he's at
professional
work
kind of
right
guy.
now. So Joe sent me. I wrote to Joe and Larry, and I said, "Hey, what's your pick? What did you find online this week?" And Joe wrote back. Go ahead, Joe.
This one is Clutch the Pearls because your iPhone is looking at your boobs. Have you heard about this, Alan?
No.
This is
this is
you
why
guys
I'm
have
here.
to pick up your
Educate me.
iPhones right now. Do you have your iPhones with you?
I have it. It's looking at my boobs.
Okay, so
yeah.
your iPhone sorts pictures. I mean, this happened with one of the iOSs maybe like about 2 years ago. So it sorts pictures into categories. And so you used to seeing categories, where it's by the town you were in, but it goes a lot deeper than that. And if you will right now pick up your iPhone and go to your photos.
Go to
Am
my
I doing
photos.
this too?
Yeah, you have to do that, Alan.
I have a droid.
Alan, your boobs are not as pretty as mine.
Go to photos and see the little eyeglass up there in the top right, the search thing.
Eyeglass. Oh, you mean the little magnifying
search.
glass?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're going to search in your photos, type in brassiere. B-R-A-S.
Wait, is the internet learning something about me that I do not want it to know if I do this?
You will be amazed when you type in brassiere on your very own, and everybody out there listening and watching.
Joe, what if I don't know how to spell brassiere?
It's Brassiere.
SS what? Brass.
Brass.
Okay. B-R-A-S-S.
Brassiere. And
this
if
is
you
a
do it
French
right
word.
Now, you'll
Okay.
see. I have 4 that have popped up, and I have to say 2 are my wife. One is my daughter, which is very disturbing, and another is a very close friend of mine's daughter. But it actually...
Are you telling me that metadata search has taken that word and applied it to a photo?
I dress with a surprising lack of cleavage, Joe. So it's shocking, actually.
You
So
don't
there's
really
no
see a
results.
lot of brassieres. You're going to see cleavage and collarbones and chests and most likely boobs. But here's the other
All right.
thing. If you're still
Okay.
on that search thing, go back to search
Okay.
and pop in gin mills. Yes.
Gin mills.
Gin mills. I came up with 626 gin mills.
148, 100. What does that mean? 158 possible matches.
And if you go, any
Are
bar,
you just
restaurant,
searching your
lounge,
own
or
photo
pub
archive?
Yeah.
is not going to be so thrilled about being associated with gin mills. If you look at the definition of gin mill, it's a rundown or seedy neighborhood bar or nightclub. And
This is my cousin Johnny with his baby. How is this a gin mill?
but there are, I mean,
It's
gin
some kind of
mills,
metadata
brassieres. What's next? You know, a Gallivant, britches, hot hootenanny, icebox. It's becoming clear that Apple has hired your grandfather to come up with category names. Right?
I think, I
Put
think
in underpants, honey.
Yes, there you go. Put in catch
someone
pajamas.
who knows how to spell brassiere has.
Okay, so today's experiment was that somehow a search word that seems completely unassociated with the photo in your archive is going to then associate itself to a series of photos in your personal archive that have nothing to do with that word, really.
No, the
Absolutely.
brassiere one was coming up with collarbones,
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
it? Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I guess that's not bad. But
if you
gin
go to
mills,
search and just put in the letter A, you will see hundreds and hundreds of search categories that are just ridiculous. And I don't know. Now, Apple says in their press release that this is only on local phones. It's only on your phone. And that Apple is not also categorizing brassieres nationally or globally. But who knows, you know.
Well, that's reassuring.
Yes.
Whatever Apple
They had to
says at this
craft
point
that
is-
press release. You know? We here at Apple
Right.
Do not associate the word with any photos on your individual device.
So
That
be
is
careful where
interesting,
your
though, yeah.
iPhone is pointing, Alan, from now on.
Now, sometimes that
Do not
I
put it
know
in your
that
front pocket, is I think.
in marketing
what
and
the
things,
lesson is.
having keywords and catchphrases that come up with something that you're trying to market is fantastic. In your own personal archive, it's like, what did they do? You know, I guess the letter A is in so many things, you know, but that is interesting. Gin mills was an interesting experiment, you know.
Yeah, that was. Now,
Why did you pick that particular word, Joe?
I actually read, I woke up early this morning and I caught it on Twitter. People are aghast that their boobage area, chestal area, and brassiere are being categorized. So
well, maybe a lot of us are learning how to spell brassiere today. So
there you
it's
go. There's
somewhat
the upside
educational.
right
Next
there.
week,
We're
Now,
all
Alan,
learning.
you-
spells
Yeah.
lingerie.
Yeah.
Alan, you're a famous and successful screenwriter who is not on Facebook.
I do not have a personal Facebook
That's
account. I just sort of-
impossible.
Yeah, I came up in an age, I guess, where Facebook seemed a little goofy to me. I never got on. I find Twitter to be an incredible marketing tool.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people I connect with on Twitter. I can advertise things on Twitter. And for me, what happened with Twitter was Facebook, it was okay. For me, I was watching David Letterman in like 2009, and Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher were on. And Ashton Kutcher was one of the first Twitter sphere guys.
Yeah, super.
And they literally
Twitter star,
went,
yeah.
And they had their phones and devices, and they went, Dave, we are going to ask. Twitter was fairly new, and they said, we're going to ask people on Twitter to ask us questions. And using this hashtag, we'll find those questions. And they did it on Letterman, and I was so blown away.
Wow.
I went, oh my gosh, they're actually communicating with people on a social platform. I think Twitter originally was going to be like, just get small groups of people that can message maybe your family and your friends. Nobody expected Ashton Kutcher to get 4 million Twitter followers. And I think he started this whole thing of going, wait a minute, we're going to create this amazing Twitter sphere.
You're right. He did, Alan. You're
now
right.
You can, now people, I see a lot of angry people on Twitter, or they're weighing in on their politics or this.
Well, what's happening on Twitter is sort of, I feel like there's this national emergency that, we have like a splinter called Trump, and until our body
is able to dispel it,
is able to expunge
You
it
gotta
or
work that out.
tweeze it, that's sort of like it's a national emergency that our bomb is speaking to each other about it, and that brings me to my online find.
Oh, let's
which
hear
is
it.
because I've become sort of steeped and obsessed with politics, and so I was looking online to see if there were any sort of senator trading cards, because that would be something I'd collect if they had them. But I couldn't find that. But I did find a website. Do you have these links, Thomas? I did find a website where you can click on every state and learn, who your senators are, and
Well, that's cool.
let's see if Thomas can grab that.
That's
link.
educational and fun.
Yeah, fun and educational.
Mm-hmm.
So you can click. It starts with. I think Alabama's the first one. So you get Jeff Sessions, which, this isn't quite up to date because he's no longer the senator. He's attorney general. Yeah.
That's right.
And then Alaska. And, so you can click on each tab or you pick your state. What state are you from, Alan?
I am from Massachusetts.
And do you know your senators?
Well, I'm actually from LA now, but no, I don't know.
Yeah. Do you know the senators in Massachusetts? So we have, you have Elizabeth Warren, of course. And
Edward J. Markey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you can go through each state, and then that, it turns out, prepares you for a quiz, which is the next link that I have.
Ooh, I love
because
that.
you can
Quizzes
study.
are good. My wife is
then-
very competitive. She would be all over that.
Okay, then you guys are going to want to take this tonight. Oh, there he is.
There it is.
Name that senator.
Name
All
that
right, it's
senator.
multiple choice.
Oh, it sounds
Yeah.
like
Oh, yeah, multiple choices
a
are great.
primetime game show. I'll be working
It
on
looks
it.
like Murkowski from here, but
It's time for Name That Senator.
what are the choices?
The choices are Joni Ernst,
Right. Nope.
Lisa Murkowski,
Yes.
Tammy Baldwin, or Deb Fisher.
It's Lisa Murkowski. Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
There you go. Very good. Bing,
Okay.
bing, 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 bing.
Okay, next. Okay, so we have 100%. Yeah, who we got? It's not Harry Reid. You can do it by process of elimination, I learned, too.
So the choices are Tom Cotton,
Yes.
Thad Cochran,
Cochran.
Yeah.
Cochran, Bill Nelson, and Harry Reid.
I'm going with Tom Cotton. Boom.
Ding, 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 ding.
You're good. You've played this game.
Wow.
Oh, that's Tim Kaine
Louise,
from here, I
You've been
can see.
studying.
Is it Patty Murray?
She looks like a Patty.
No, I think it's
Wrong.
Cameron.
Oh, all right. So where can people find the quiz to play it at home, Thomas?
Name that senator.nationaljournal.com.
There
Yeah.
it is.
So I'm going to be playing that obsessively
National
tonight. Nationaljournal.com, yes.
Journal.com. Got it.
And John has an online find that he would like. John and Jasper actually have an online find.
We do?
Yes, you do.
We do. Yeah, well, in the last year and a half, 2 years, there's been a phenomenon in the podcasting world called minute podcasts.
Minute podcast.
And-
Wow.
Minute podcasts, and they're basically centered around. Does anybody like movies? Like, what's your favorite movie, Louise?
Oh, wow.
When Harry Met Sally, Rob Reiner.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there might be.
Chick movies will not be in this. I promise. Although we should make that.
So basically, the people that started the Minute Podcast was Star Wars Minute, right?
Correct. And what they do, what the podcasts are, is they're usually daily podcasts that are about 15, 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
and they're put on by super fans of movies. And what they do is they take a movie like Star Wars. There's a Star Trek minute. There's Harry Potter minute.
There's Indiana Jones minute.
Yeah.
Private Resort?
Exactly. And the one that we came into was the Back to the Future minute. And what they do is they break the movie down, and each podcast is 1 minute of the movie. Mm-hmm. And they basically talk about 1 minute of the movie for the podcast, right?
Right.
But are they funny about it?
Yes.
Okay, so are we going to play a sample?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, he's queuing that up. So the interesting thing, especially with Back to the Future, which Jasper and I have fallen in love with, right, for the past year and a half, is they get into like the different kinds of time dimensions because the stories change, and the story changes as they go back in time, and like the butterfly effect, it'll change the timeline of the future.
Right.
And they'll kind of get uber geeky about things like that. So
there's a Pirates of the Caribbean minute.
Oh, right, Pirates of the Caribbean. So what I'm personally waiting for is like Monty Python and the Holy Grail minute.
Really?
I think that would be pretty funny.
That'd be fun.
You could request it.
Or Blues Brother minute is one I'd like to actually participate in. That would be
one.
really funny. Okay, so you could just kind of pick a random episode here, and we'll play a little excerpt.
So Marty bursts into the door, and he's like, Marty. I mean, he's
talking to himself.
Sorry.
Marty, when are you going to learn to stop bursting into places? Doc, I need your help.
Oh, Marty, you've done it again. So he bursts into the room, and he's like, Doc, we got to go back. And he's like, back where? And he's like, back to the future, you dingus.
Yeah, it is the most exasperated Back to the Future. It's just, he's so exasperated. And it's like, it's the title drop, which, love a title drop, but it's so exasperated where it's just like, he's saying it as if he's like, what movie are we in, Doc? Come on.
Like Christopher Lloyd forgot what he was doing that day.
Yeah.
What do you think? Back to the Future.
Yeah.
And these are by Uber fans, right? So they know the movies inside and out, and we'll talk about that. And you'd be interested in this too. They in the Back to the Future, they'll actually reference the original script.
You're reminding me of something that Alan and I did at Premiere back in the 90s. Yes. I don't know if, Thomas, you're able to find the 1 minute talk show. We decided for some reason to film a 1 minute talk show in my office at Premiere, Joe.
Yeah.
And we got Henry Winkler to be our guest.
You're kidding. Oh, my God.
And just humiliate and embarrass him.
Yeah, and,
was the goal of the show.
we were working towards that.
He was such a great sport.
It's time for Premiere's Minute Talk Show with your host, Alan Wenkus.
Hey, welcome to Premiere's Minute Talk Show. I'm Alan Wenkus. Hey, did you read about this? Country star Minnie Pearl, who always had a price tag dangling from her hat, has died at age 83. The family knew the end was near when the coroner took the tag off Minnie's hat and put it on her toe. Not a good sign. Hey, we've got a terrific show for you. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Is your cat finicky?
Welcome back. Larry, how was your weekend?
It was great. The most wonderful thing happened. My 4-year-old son, Alex...
Terrific. Our next guest needs no introduction. Please welcome Mr. Henry Winkler.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Henry, thanks for coming on.
Nice to
real
see
keep
you.
having you.
Hi.
Now, I know that, you're the executive producer of Sightings?
I am one of them. I do the show with Steve Krupnick and Ann Daniel, and we're going into our 5th year. It's very exciting.
It's a great show, and it's all about UFOs and paranormal experiences. Now, let me ask you, have you ever had a paranormal experience?
I actually, sitting close to you is the closest I've come to wow. experience.
You know, Henry, we've got so many questions we want to ask you.
You ask away. I'm ready.
Unfortunately, we don't have time. Our next guest will be Rob Iceman Eisenberg.
I was going to talk about my wife.
You know what? Tell it to Oprah. Up next, we've got the musical stylings of Rob Iceman Eisenberg. Here he is, the Iceman. Wow, that sounds like it could have been a terrific song. Coming up soon, we've got Jim Carrey right now. Here's Jane Winburn from the San Diego Zoo. Jane, what have you got for us?
This is Mucky, the Australian koala. Would you like to hold him?
I guess so, but whoa, Mucky's got a bladder control problem. Could you pass it over to Henry?
Oh, all right. Would you like to hold him? You know, he's indigenous of the coastal regions of Australia.
Wow, look at the time. Our apologies to Jim Carrey. We'll try to get him on again real soon. This is Alan Wenkus, and you've been watching the Premiere Minute Talk Show. We'll see you soon.
Goodness, koala pee. Oh, get me out of here.
Guests of the Minute Talk Show stay at the luxurious Motel 5, but not for the entire night. Motel 5, not to be confused with Motel 6.
And I want to thank Alan Wenkus for being such a wonderful
Yes,
guest,
Alan.
and Joe for
thanks, Joe. I look forward to meeting you at your studio and talking to Wheezy through the mic.
That's what we'll do.
Let's do that.
Yes.
Let's get
It's a great
clap
idea.
track.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe. We love you, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Weeze.
Oh, Joe, you going to read the closing
I will.
credits?
Things I Found Online
Okay.
stars Joe Cipriano, Larry Morgan, and Louise Palanker. Our special guest has been Alan Wenkus. Our studio engineers are John Maddox and Thomas Hubble. Our theme song is by John Maddox and Louise Palanker. Please like, subscribe, and write a review because we are your favorite podcast. Louise!
You forgot me.
Thank you. Bye, Jasper. Jasper Maddox.